therefore I'm late. Welcome everyone. So glad we're all here together. Those of us who are here together with Dr. Russell, thank you for joining us as well. We're going to hold approving the minutes until we have a quorum. Until and if we have a quorum. Really, I'm just going off the agenda on the screen. I don't have my laptop with me. Is there any old business, or does anyone have something they'd like to add to the agenda? I always forget that question. Almost all the meetings I run. It sounds like not. So we're going to go to the new business, the grants open house debrief.
So we held our first ever grants open house for our community investment grant programs through the county at the beginning of this calendar year, January 10th. And it was a great success. We had well over 100 people attending, lots of different nonprofit organizations coming through who have either applied for funding through the county before, received funding, not received funding, or are new to county funding. So we had our 9 core community investment grant programs present. Everyone had a table. And so the strategic partnership grant table was held down by Kate, our committee chair. And she isn't able to attend today, but she did provide some feedback to share with the group via email. So I wanted to make sure that I was able to share that with y'all. She said, I really enjoyed the fair because it gave me a chance to interact with people that are interested in a strategic partnership grant. Attendees asked for clarification about the 3-year project funding cap and the $80,000 cap on grant awards. They also inquired about and received a guide on the scoring rubric. Many organization representatives expressed that they have several projects that would fit the grant program and had not applied in prior years. The sheer volume of attendees makes me think that the grant applications this year will be over and above what we received last year. And I would highly recommend attending the fair next year to encourage organizations to apply for a grant. So, like I said, this was our first time doing this. We heard really positive feedback from organizations. It was in person. I think we need a bigger space next year, and we would love to have more representatives from our committees join us to table. And so that's something that we will be asking for next year when we figure out what this looks like for our next grant cycle. But all in all, really excellent opportunity to share more about each individual grant program, give clear information, consistent information, have some one-on-one FaceTime with folks. And I know Kate's not here, but just big shout out to her she was the only one at the strategic partnerships table, and it was like nonstop for 2+ hours, just people lining up to talk to you. So she did a great job representing this committee.
Sarah, can I ask, did everyone who attended register? Did they sign in when they came in?
We did have a sign-in, yeah.
And then from that, or without that, just your own sense of it, or Kate's sense of it too. Kate's not here, so your sense of it. When we do this grant program, we often talk about the biases for who's applying, like who we're connecting with and who we were successful in outreach to and who we're not successful. So I'm wondering like what that looked like for who was showing up. Like were we reaching people we don't normally reach? Were this for normal cast of characters? And I'm not diminishing them by saying that. Just who was there?
Yeah, great question. So we didn't require folks to register ahead of time, just knowing we sent out multiple communications to a list of over like 550 folks and organizations in the community. And that was based on each grant program's kind of contact list or folks that they've worked with before or received inquiries about grant programs, as well as Kate's our communications and public engagement team, their listservs. We also had a kind of new contact list for BIPOC nonprofits, either BIPOC-led or BIPOC serving. And so we utilized that for outreach. And I was really pleased in terms of the turnout to see a variety of folks in the room, a variety of organizations, whether it's like really small grassroots, one-person organizations, volunteer run, to larger organizations that we have funded for years in a row. And there was a lot of diversity in the room, a lot more than we've seen in past opportunities. So.
To add to that, I heard names of nonprofits and organizations that I'd never heard of before as I met people.
Really? Yeah.
So many that I was like, wow, we have to be careful what we ask for in terms of Kate's comment about the increased request. I pulled up the number anecdotally for this meeting of how many applications have come in over the years. And back in the good old days, when Doug first arrived on the scene, we had 43 applications, and then it went up to 51, to 66, to 71. So I'm fully anticipating we'll get a lot of applications. Last year we got 11 from organizations that hadn't applied before. I don't know when we hit saturation, but we really have been working hard to use those relationships and strategies to be inclusive and have broader, deeper reach. And one other item on that is I did submit the request for 100,000 more to try to grow our grant program from 900,000 to 1 million. We'll see if it makes it all the way through the budget process, but it has been officially submitted.
Thank you so much.
That's part of the data that I had pulled was backing that and making the justification for that request.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
And as the applications increase, our work increases, but that's a good problem to have, right?
It is a good problem to have, and it's intimidating, but we're take it as we can and pace ourselves, and staff will be here to help you as much as we can. And Sarah's going to talk through all that later.
I think the improvements we've made in the process has made that more navigable than it might have been even when I first joined. When you had different lists for different grant programs, with this event, which is kind of a unified event, have you thought about having, if you already have it, a unified email thing that's going out X times a year that goes to everyone, and then when people attend, they sign up to be on that, so that way you're capturing everyone's information.
That's a great idea. We don't have that yet.
I was really asking you as a suggestion.
It makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions about the grants open house? And so grateful for you guys for doing it. I had initially signed up and then had a conflict. And one of the grant programs came.
One of our takeaways, because it was so well attended, so people were so engaged, was to have more participation next year. So we'll be inviting you and others to come and join us.
And we now have quorum.
Hey, Ken, how are you? I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm not, but
Well, it's so good to see you.
thank you.
So with the quorum, let's take advantage of that moment. I guess first, does anyone have any other questions or feedback about the grants open house? Okay, so then with that item done, let's move back to the minutes from December 7th. And if everyone's does anyone have any changes to the minutes or anything to add or subtract? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 7th?
So moved.
Thank you. And can I have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Great, thank you all. The minutes are approved. And let's move to grant review planning.
All right, so the meat of this meeting is going to be used to kind of talk through what the next step is in our funding process for FY25. As you all know, applications opened in December for our strategic partnership grants, and they're closing on Friday, February 9th at 5 p.m., our fast deadline, which is quickly approaching. We're now in February. So that means that this committee is going to be looking to the next step in the funding process once the applications roll in. And we wanted to make sure that everyone felt prepared to take those next steps forward. So I did attach the 3 documents in the agenda, the scoring tool, software information, and methodology for recommendations in an email, but I also printed out versions on that table back there. So please feel free to grab those sheets if you'd like to follow on there. The first thing that we're gonna look at is the scoring tool. And everyone, except I think Anne is the only new person on the committee who hasn't gone through this process yet. And before we even start with this, I just want to make it known that we are having an orientation for committee members who either would like new information on how to get into the software and utilize the evaluation tools in there. Or if you want a refresher on that, you are welcome to join. That's going to be February 8th. We'll leave at 3 o'clock. Let me confirm that. Yes, at 3 o'clock. Brief 30-minute review of that. So anyone is welcome to attend. Please feel free to reach out to Angelin if you're interested in attending that. So looking at the scoring tool, that is your attachment A, scoring criteria. And this might look familiar to you because this is included in the grant guidelines. The scoring criteria is something that staff and this committee came up with and has kind of been honed in on and revised over the years. This is the latest iteration that this committee has approved that was included in the application. So all organizations who are looking to apply have this information readily available. This is going to be used by committee members in the evaluation process for each of the scored components of the application. So you will see on here you have 6 different scored sections of the application. There are more questions on the actual application, but we're only looking at these 6 to be scored. And those 6 categories are the need for the project, the project plan, proposed results, capacity, equity, and budget. So as you're in the grant software and reading through each applicant's proposals, we'll look at the evaluation instructions in a moment, but you're going to be using the scale of 1 to 5. They're equally weighted for each question, so a maximum of 30 points available for scoring. And you're going to use your best judgment as committee members between 1 point for an answer to 5 points. 1 point is going to be, it's an incomplete answer. There really wasn't information needed to be able to understand that component or that question of the application. 5 is going to be excellent, and that is, it provides an answer that shows everything that was asked for in the question, kind of goes above and beyond, made it really clear what they're trying to do with that application question. And these are gonna be specific in the scoring criteria to each question. So as you can see, need for project, 1 point is going to be different than project plan, 1 point. So you'll definitely want to use this scoring criteria, either take this printout, have it readily available on your screen as you're scoring, and just keep checking back and forth. You can go back in to the application or the evaluation of applications in the online software. So if you go ahead and score things and then you need to go back and say like, ooh, I feel like I was a little off that day, or, ooh, I just reread this, answer to this and I feel like I need to change this on this application evaluation, you can go back and do that. But again, make sure that you're really leaning into and utilizing the scoring criteria that we've provided. And the other thing that this committee has talked about each year when we go into this is what Ray was bringing up earlier about biases. We know that we're all individual humans with our own understanding and experiences. And when you're coming into this kind of work, committee work, and looking at trying to be as unbiased as possible, we just ask that you're really checking that as you're reading through each application. And it's not just about looking at like, oh, this was extremely well written, or, they clearly had resources to be able to provide an application of this caliber, but rather, what is the meat of the application? What is the project that they are proposing, and do we feel like with the information provided, they're able to successfully carry out this project with this funding? Any additional thoughts or questions on that component?
I have a thought and a question. The thought is that the idea of going back and changing scores for me, where that most likely happens is the first few I review, okay, I think I'm kind of here, and then when I get further in, it's like the lines kind of move a bit. And then I have to, was I being fair to the early applicants in positive or negative ways? Like, was I being consistent across my scoring? Because it sometimes shifts the deeper you go in. That's the comment. The question, which I should remember, and I don't, and I apologize for that diminished cognitive capacity, is equity specifically, the equity category. What is the definition, the county's definition of equity? Is that given, I assume it is, to applicants on the application? And is it front and center for us when we review? I just don't remember. So that we're not just holding our own subjective equity criteria, but at least filtering that through the lens of the county's definition.
Yep, great question. It is provided, the county's definition is provided in the application. And that will then transfer verbatim into what you're seeing on your screen as you're evaluating. So you'll be able to see that in the asked question and then however they propose answering it.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or thoughts? Folks who have gone through this process before and used this tool, words of wisdom.
I have a thought that occurred to me from the staff side that might be something that you're gonna get through. Were you planning to speak to the comments piece?
Oh, yeah.
Notes?
Yeah. So there is an additional piece on top of these 6 things that you're evaluating. There is another box available to you as an evaluator for each application that is comments or notes. And we ask that you utilize that at your discretion for any clarifying questions that you might have about the application, or things that really stood out to you as like, wow, their project plan, I think this is a phenomenal project. It's really, that can be used for more subjective thoughts, comments. We do also want everyone to be aware that all of this information is subject to public record requests. So please be thoughtful as you're putting things in there. Nothing that's like a critique of an organization or anything like that. But if it is something where it's like, oh, I don't have an opportunity to, like, I really wanna raise up this application more. Like, this was something that stood out to me as a fantastic proposal.
To offer a counterpoint, it could be positive or negative
Yep.
comments on an application. We use it, the organizations very often will reach out to us and ask for feedback on why they did or didn't get funded. Usually didn't get funded. And we have a way to run a report of all the scores. We conceal the names of reviewers on those reports. So it doesn't show who scored what, but if there are no comments